It could help us lower payment transaction costs. They could facilitate access to capital. They provide pseudonymity. They could provide levels of security that other forms of currency have not. Limited pickup as a medium of exchange might be explained partly by the volatility of these cryptocurrencies. And here we have what strikes me as an interesting iteration, maybe, including a mechanism to provide a diminished volatility, which is backing it with a basket of currencies. So I just think we should be exploring this and considering the benefits as well as the risks, and take a prudent approach. But to announce in advance that we have to strangle this baby in the crib, I think is wildly premature. Let me ask a question, Mr. Marcus, about the ultimate motive of this. It seems to many of us that if this were to unfold as you've described, and Calibra and Libra were adopted widely, there would be very, very valuable data about payments. In your testimony, my understanding is you have said that it is your intention never to share, this is for Calibra, never to share that data without consent. So is it the business model, is it the plan to, at some point in the foreseeable future, seek the consent of the participants so that you would be able to commercialize that data somehow?
Senator, no, this is not the intention at all. The plan, as far as Facebook is concerned, to monetize Calibra and this initiative is actually to enable the 90 million small businesses that are currently on the Facebook platform and the many users that are on the platform as well to engage in more commerce together. And if they engage in more commerce, there will be more advertising spend from those small businesses. That would be a first indirect effect of having Calibra and the Libra network be successful. And then over time, what we hope is that through the Calibra wallet, we can offer more services in partnerships with existing banks and financial services companies to drive new revenue streams for the company.
So the intent is never to even seek the consent of the consumer with regard to that payment data, to consent to commercialize it.
Senator, I can't think of any reason right now for us to do this.
My understanding is that the basket of currencies invested in very liquid, high-quality assets that is used as to provide the intrinsic value of this currency, there would be presumably income from that. We've got a lot of negative interest rates around the world, but let's assume that we've got more positive interest rates than negative. That generates a revenue stream. And I think from your testimony, the intent is to use that to cover some various costs. But at some point, that could become very, very substantial. And I saw a reference to paying out dividends to the founders, the original investors, but this is also described as a not-for-profit. So it strikes me as odd for a not-for-profit to generate what could be huge income and then distribute it to the investors. That sounds like a for-profit. And so one possibility is you could pay dividends in Libra to reflect the value of the income from the underlying assets. But could you explain how paying potentially unlimited dividends to the investor is not a for-profit operation?
Yes, Senator. Thank you for your question. First, I want to address the fact that Libra doesn't pay interest because Libra is like cash and is mainly going to be used as a payment instrument. And as far as the interest and the non-for-profit question goes, the way that this is structured is that it will have some income that is actually targeted towards paying the operating costs of the association and potentially returning some return to all of the organizations that will invest in the ecosystem to make it happen. But the plan is not for this income to be, unlimited and to be, all of the income going back to investors. Obviously, we will need to find a way over time to create new pools of incentive that go back to people and businesses using the Libra network. And this is part of the conversation we're notably having on how to manage the reserve and the returns, and how to have appropriate oversight on the reserve with this working group that the G7 organized with central banks, finance ministries, and the FSB. And I believe that the reserve will require very specific oversight and regulatory framework in order to ensure proper management.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Tester.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ranking Member Brown, thank you for being here today. David, I appreciate you being in front of the committee. I have some concerns, a number of concerns, one of them being consumer security. In cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin, transactions are final. That means if somebody gets hacked, if somebody steals Bitcoin, there's not much I can do about it. On the other hand, if somebody steals funds from a bank account or makes fraudulent charges on a credit card, the consumer, for the most part, almost always, is held whole by the institution. How will Libra handle theft?
Senator, I can speak for the Calibra wallet, and the Calibra wallet will offer consumer protection against fraud and account recovery the same way that the leading wallets today out there and financial services company provide customer protection.
Okay, so in a situation where a fraudulent charge has been made with my account, you're saying that Calibra will make the consumer whole, correct?
That is correct, Senator.
Is that immediate? Will that be immediate? So, okay, and will it be without question? So what I'm asking is that I pull out my driver's license, my credit card falls on the ground. That's really my fault. But when they take that credit card to Cleveland, Ohio, and buy hoverboards with it, the bank always makes it fine. Okay. The question is and it's immediate. Will it be immediate in your case?
Yeah, Senator, we will do our best to resolve those types of issues and claims as fast as possible, and we're investing heavily in 24/7 live customer support when it comes to the Calibra wallet to ensure that we can resolve those issues for
I think
our customers.
it's critical that that is resolved before it goes live. So when I deposit money into a bank, I am very confident that I can withdraw it from that bank. Okay, my grandfather was not, by the way, and that's why even on these homesteads that are around, every once in a while you'll find a glass jar full of money because they didn't trust the banks. It was only when we got deposit insurance that the banks had the kind of faith. What kind of faith do we have in Libra?
Thank you for your question, Senator. Libra is actually going to be backed by a reserve, 1-for-1, so it's not ever going to be a fractional reserve.
Okay.
And as a result, it is designed to be stable and retain its value.
I got that. So in 2008, as the ranking member pointed out, there was a run on the banks. There were some big companies that went belly up, including 157 banks, Lehman Brothers, WAMU, Bear Stearns, and others. Nobody anticipated there would be a run like there was. Nobody. How can you assure us? And by the way, I still felt confident that my money was safe in my bank. How can you make those assurances? How can you do it when we're talking about a for-profit entity, whether it's called nonprofit or not? It's a for-profit entity. You're not doing this just for the fun of it. How can we be assured that our money is going to be there?
Senator, when it comes to Libra, because the reserve is actually 1-for-1 and not fractional, the issue we've had in the events that you highlighted were because some of these institutions didn't have the appropriate reserves.
Didn't have, okay.
And we also want the appropriate regulatory oversights to ensure that anyone will have the ability to understand how big the reserve is and how many Libra coins, if you will, are in circulation at any given point in time to rest assured that the value they hold is backed at any given point in time with the same amount in the reserve.
Okay. So when we met last week, and thanks for coming in, by the way, the reserve question has to be answered, and it has to be something, by the way, that's not up to you guys to determine what that reserve is, because when times get tough, stuff happens, okay? And so there has to be that kind of reliability there for that. Otherwise, we're in no different situation whether we're as we went into the 1930s, because you are a big outfit. Just let me. There's been a lot of comments about Facebook today that's brought up about some of the stuff that's happened on Facebook that hasn't been meritorious, and I'm being generous. And it's true. And it has to do with bad actors, because quite frankly, there's people on Facebook that are doing stuff all the time that have a different agenda than right and good and mom and dad and apple pie and Chevrolet, okay? How are you going to prevent bad actors from using the application? And the past performance with Facebook has been not that aggressive. Let the money come in, we'll worry about it later. And it has had some pretty negative impacts on a lot of stuff worldwide. Tell me how you're going to prevent bad actors from using this, and then I'll shut up.
Senator, when anyone will open a Calibra account, because
Yes.
You will need to open a separate account. You cannot actually just use your Facebook account to open a Calibra wallet. You will have to authenticate and upload your government-issued ID. As a result, we'll have real identity on top of the Calibra wallet, and we will have systems and a dedicated team to prevent fraudulent activity and, of course, to meet our requirements of anti-money laundering and counterterrorism funding monitoring.
It's a huge issue, and I think it would benefit this effort if Facebook did a better job right now doing exactly what you said. Thank you for being here.
Senator Tillis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Marcus, thank you for being here. I think you've said, well, first off, I'd like to associate myself with some of the comments of Senator Toomey. I think it's a good idea for us to explore this because, quite honestly, cryptocurrency now is still kind of a wild, wild west that is not very well regulated. And there are a number of examples that I'm aware of where consumers have lost everything with their engagement with some of the better-known cryptocurrencies out there. I'm trying to understand the distinction. You're going to have a transaction processing platform that I think several people have agreed to enter a consortium. I assume that that's with the intent of using the underlying platform. You're not creating something that's at the expense of credit card companies or other wallet platforms on the internet. Is it a facilitator for those and take all comers, assuming that they're trusted payment platforms?
Yes, Senator, and I want to stress that both Visa and MasterCard are taking this journey with us, as well as PayPal and Mercado Pago and Coinbase and a number of other wallets. But I want to also stress that you don't have to become a member to accept Libra as a form of payment or to build services on top of the Libra network.
Well, that's what I was trying to get at. There's a distinction between the currency, which would be a Libra, and the underlying infrastructure you're providing to facilitate payments. Is that correct?
That is correct, Senator.
Now I want to get to something that I think you all have to get right. I'd love to, first off, what kind of capital investment are you all projecting? If you're hoping to launch it next year, I assume you've got a pretty exhaustive implementation plan in place. What kind of capital investment are y'all looking at to put in the underlying infrastructure?
Senator, I think that's one of the reasons why Facebook is an appropriate sponsor as well, is we have the resources to innovate, and we're ready to put those resources to build valuable tools for people, and that's what we're going to do here. We haven't determined exactly how much we are going to invest, and this is a process that...
So the consortium would be a part of the investment?
Yes, every member, Senator, will have an opportunity to invest and participate in funding the network.
I think something that would be very helpful for this committee and maybe other members is to get really a briefing on the entire stack here. I think you said repeatedly you're not a bank. You're not going to hold deposits. You can't have a run in a traditional sense. I understand what you're doing with the reserve, I guess, for transactions and process. I think it'd be very helpful for the committee members and staff to understand that. So a briefing of that type would be what I've been able to study on the internet. It's fairly limited in terms of really understanding the stack and then understanding what parts of the stack probably should be subject to some sort of regulatory oversight. I do want to express a concern. We had a committee hearing on judiciary, I think it was just last week, talking about how social media platforms have been hijacked by transnational criminal organizations, by pedophiles, by sexual predators. I don't think that you ever implemented, or no social media platform, I hope, was implemented for that purpose. But people are smart and devious, and they hijack it. I hope that as a part of your implementation, you're looking at all the ways that your payment platform, like all the other ones, could be potentially exploited for criminal activities. And it's another reason why I think a briefing on the fuller architecture, the implementation timeline, maybe your own suggestion of where regulatory oversight would be pretty important to making sure you're going to create a trusted platform. We need to get that kind of information to the committee and to the members who are interested in digging in. I believe that if the United States can either follow some other jurisdiction on pursuing this, or we can lead it. And I believe in the same way that we have the gold standard for banking system in the United States, we have an opportunity to set an international standard that will ultimately provide greater consumer protections for a lot of the other upstart equivalent, not exactly equivalent architecturally to what you're planning on doing. So I think it's worth you all doing this. I do have concerns about privacy, about potential exploitation of the platform, but I believe the United States, our regulatory environment, and a consortium that's well-funded is more likely to produce a gold standard, something that does drive down the cost of transactions, actually providing better value for people who have the least amount of money to pay the transaction fees that they're paying today. So I look forward to seeing this develop. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator.
Senator Warner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good to see you, Mr. Marcus. I'm all for financial innovation and better payment methods. I'm intrigued by blockchain and distributed ledger technology, but I share a lot of the concerns that my colleagues do up here, particularly with an enterprise as large as yours, 2 billion users. If we look back and during the antitrust investigation of Microsoft during the 1990s, the Justice Department found that a key strategy that Microsoft used, which was called internally, dubbed embrace, extend, extinguish. The gist of this strategy was to go out and find a new technology and then either copy it or buy it up. I call it catch and kill. It has been a technology, or it's been a methodology that Facebook has used extraordinarily effectively, buying up or copying other emerging technologies that might be disruptive to your dominance. Now we move into blockchain, which again has the ability to be extraordinarily disruptive. Why shouldn't we view Facebook's efforts here with Libra and Calibra simply as another manifestation of the catch and kill approach?
Senator, I'm glad you asked that question because the way that we have developed the technology, the early technology for Libra, is that we've invested, we've put our best engineering talent in building the code base, the technology for the Libra network. And then what we did is we open sourced it. And as a result, it doesn't belong to us anymore. It is now belonging to the community, and they will help build the code, and we will relinquish our control over both the code base and the network through the process.
Well, let me follow up then, because will you commit that Facebook will not develop preferential incentives that unfairly tie Calibra, which is going to be your money-making venture, to other Facebook products as a way from prohibiting or Libra users to use wallets other than Calibra?
Senator, I'd even go further, which is that not only have we started the technology and shared it in open source, but the network is actually completely
No, that's not the question. The question is incentives within your existing products. You didn't answer Chairman Crapo's question, where he said, with your dominance, how do you make sure that your already existing global platforms like WhatsApp and Messenger will actually support third-party wallets? Will you at least clarify your answer to Chairman Crapo's question and say Facebook will make sure that WhatsApp and Messenger will support third-party wallets?
Senator,
yes or no?
Senator, I want to clarify because there's a nuance.
Not clarification. This is fair. You didn't answer Chairman Crapo. Please answer my question.
Senator, the network is interoperable, meaning that people who are using the Libra network from within WhatsApp will be able to send and receive from other wallets that are not Calibra wallets.
So if a user wishes to use, a Facebook user wishes to use a wallet other than Calibra, will you make it easy to allow the export of their keys, their financial data, and other Calibra data? If somebody started as a Calibra data wallet user but decided, I don't want Calibra anymore, I want to go to Nuco, will you make it easy for them to move their keys, their data, their financial information all over to that other third party?
Absolutely, Senator.
So so right there you've agreed on data portability and potential interoperability in terms of the use of these wallets. So my hope will be you'll have that same approach when I lay out my legislation for data portability and interoperability on existing platform use. So I hope your commitment on Calibra will extend to your current applications as well. Can I get a commitment there as well?
I cannot commit for other parts of the company.
Well, I appreciate your team who has been willing to work with us, but it would be really great if you go ahead and make that same commitment on Facebook basic products, because if we want to bring in competition, you've got to have that data portability, interoperability. But at least on Calibra, you are on the record as making sure that you will put no barriers in place to moving from one wallet to another.
Senator, we believe that this is actually primordial for the Libra network, that consumers have the ability to move from wallet to ensure that there are good competitive dynamics that work in favor of consumers. We really believe
and so, again, I'll come back again to Chairman Crapo's question about your globally dominant platform products already in terms of WhatsApp and Messenger. They will support third-party wallets other than Calibra.
Senator, I want to clarify, which is that...
And every time you start with, I want to clarify, gives me great level of pause. Chairman Crapo's asked the question, I've asked the question. Seems to me pretty simple. WhatsApp and Messenger, globally dominant products. Will they support third-party wallets, or will they have incentives that will push people to simply using the Facebook product, Calibra?
So this is why I want to clarify, Senator, if I may, because it's a nuanced answer. If your question is whether we will embed other wallets inside of WhatsApp and Messenger, the answer is no. If you're asking whether other wallets will have a full interoperability, meaning that you don't have to use the Calibra wallet inside of Messenger and WhatsApp to be able to send or receive money to people who are using the Calibra wallet inside of Messenger and WhatsApp, the answer is yes.
Embedding is different than putting preferential treatment and preferential areas. I didn't get to the questions around third-party developers having some concerns about giving access. But again, Mr. Chairman, I think some of your questions that you've asked is one of the reasons we're going to need to take a great deal of time to work this through. Thank you, Mr. Marcus.
Senator Rounds.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Marcus, thanks very much for appearing here before us today. Before I begin my questions, I just want to take a moment to commend the South Dakota Division of Banking for their forward thinking and willingness to allow for innovation in the digital currency space. Another founding member of the Libra Association, Anchorage, just received permission from the Division of Banking to become a South Dakota chartered trust company. Thanks to the business-friendly climate in my state, Anchorage, which is a Silicon Valley crypto vault company, has chosen to open its second headquarters in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. Now, the significance of this extends far beyond the borders of South Dakota. Our Division of Banking should serve as a model for how governments can study and learn about digital currencies, and while at the same time allowing pioneering companies like Anchorage to innovate and try out new products and services. So once again, congratulations to Anchorage and welcome to South Dakota. I'm curious, I've had an opportunity on several different occasions to travel to Africa and to watch what's going on within Africa and the challenges they have there with very small amounts of value within their own currencies. And yet on a day-to-day basis, there's literally millions of people there that look to buy very small incremental items on a day-to-day basis. They don't have any type of a product out there today really that works well that's internationally based. Can you talk a little bit about what you see in other countries, the direction they're going, and what the opportunities are for this type of a platform to allow a very simple and inexpensive way to transact for values received or currencies or products, commodities, and exchange without a high cost of doing so? And just a thought in that regard. I haven't really heard that discussed yet today.
I appreciate your question, Senator. The way that anyone in the world will have the ability to use Libra using the wallet of their choice will be to install a small app on a $40 Android device with a basic data plan. And from that point on, have the ability to move from the cash economy to the digital economy and benefit from having the ability to transact, not only domestically but internationally at very low or no cost, and benefit from services that will be built on the Libra network by other companies as well. And as a result, we really hope, and this is our ambition, that we can lower the barriers for access to modern financial services and massively lower costs for the people who need it the most. And in the process, potentially also lower access to capital, because if suddenly you have a global platform that enables free or low-cost money movements, then access to capital should be cheaper, and the barriers will be lower as well.
See, I think you're going to have a lot of competition. I think there's going to be a lot of different organizations that understand that this is the wave of the future. And I think the questions have been fair with regard to the different applications that are out there and how they would fit on your platform and be allowed. And I think that's going to be an item of discussion for some time to come. But with it also comes the kind of the regulatory layout that you work within. You've chosen to set this up in Switzerland. What did Switzerland offer that the United States did not? And what is it about our regulatory framework that puts us perhaps at a disadvantage?
Senator, the choice of Switzerland, again, is not to evade any responsibility or regulatory oversight. It was really because we believe that a global digitally native currency that will be used by people all around the world would benefit from being headquartered in an international place that is also the home of many respected international organizations. And that was where we came from. The reality, though, is if you look at the current composition of the Libra Association members, those are mostly American companies. Calibra is an American subsidiary of a large American company, will be licensed and operate in the U.S. And I think that the beneficiaries in terms of companies of the Libra network will likely be American companies under the American jurisdiction and with proper regulatory oversight in the U.S.
Well, I think the proposal that you has huge potential. And I think the challenges for the transaction of the exchange for services and so forth today still has lots of obstacles to be overcome, including that of security and privacy. But nonetheless, we're going to look forward to observing and participating in this, because I really do think it's the wave of the future. And as Senator Tillis said, we are either going to be responding to it, or we can be actively involved in learning from it. So, thank you. Thank you.
Senator Cortez Masto.
Mr. Marcus, thank you very much. We appreciate you being here and answering the questions. This is obviously very, very innovative for all of us, and it's exciting. But I do have a couple of questions to see if you've thought through some of the concerns I think many of us also have. And one of them for me in particular is because something I dealt with as Attorney General of the state of Nevada is the issue of money laundering. I know there's clear regulatory oversight that we have right now to address the issue of money laundering that comes in so many forms, but one of them is terrorist financing, the money laundering supports some terrorist financing. So my question to you is, how will the Libra Association itself be ensuring that it is guarding against any type of money laundering activity? Have you thought about that?
Yes, Senator, and this is something that I care about deeply personally. And the way we're thinking about protecting the integrity of the network from money laundering, criminal activity, terrorism funding is by not only moving a lot of cash transaction in the digital world, where cash transaction is where most crimes currently happen, and we believe that if a lot of transactions move to digital, it'll be better. And the way that we are applying AML programs, is that as far as the Calibra wallet is concerned, we will have strong identity because for every new Calibra account open, you will have to upload a government-issued ID and authenticate. And as a result, we'll have AML programs on the Calibra wallet. As far as the Libra network is concerned, we will have an AML program as well. And despite the fact that the Libra Association will be based in Switzerland, it will register with FinCEN, and as a result, we'll have to comply with AML and KYC practices.
So I'm glad you just brought up FinCEN, because that was my next question. Would the association itself fall under the Bank Secrecy Act jurisdiction?
Senator, the association will not actually touch consumers. It will process, it will just organize.
So who's going to be subject to the Bank Secrecy Act and FinCEN then? I guess that's my question.
So the Calibra wallet and all of the wallets that are operating under that jurisdiction will, of course, comply with BSA, will perform perform KYC and have AML programs. And we're engaged with Treasury on this to make sure that the setup of the network is not only not going to take a step back in terms of the efficacy of the AML and CTR programs, CFT programs, but improve the efficacy because of the way that we're implementing and configuring the network.
So you're currently talking right now with FinCEN and FinCEN to get sign-off on how you address money laundering issues?
We are, Senator.
Okay. I appreciate you providing more transparency around that. And let me just say, this is a new day and age. When it comes to cash and carrying around a briefcase full of cash, transnational criminals and terrorist activities don't do that anymore. And what you are creating right now is an opportunity for them to engage in continuing money laundering and criminal activity. So know that. That's one. To say that we're going to be complying with AML activities is one thing. I want to see the specifics of it. So I appreciate you willingness to talk with FinCEN and talk with us about how we address this issue. Another one that has come up as I sit on banking committee here, and we've talked about it several times, is sanctions laws. The head of policy and communication for Libra was recently on a podcast and was asked how Libra would react if a government like the United States required that the Libra Association blacklist certain addresses in order to comply with sanctions laws, as is typical in what we do here. The response was, I quote, "The association won't interact with any jurisdiction. It will instead leave that to the entities that provide an on and off ramp to Libra, the currency." Can you clarify that? How are we supposed to address this issue when it comes to blacklisting and sanctions laws?
Senator, this is a question that we're also engaged with the Treasury Department on, and the one thing that we have committed is that we will respect the travel rule and, as a result, perform the right checks, and including OFAC checks. And this is definitely true for the Calibra wallet. I don't know in what context those comments were made, but I believe that it may be because the association itself is not running anything. It's just coordinating governance. But the actual service providers that are going to be regulated service providers will enforce travel rule, perform OFAC checks, and ensure that those who are subject will, of course, perform those functions.
Thank you. I notice my time is up. I have further questions. I'll submit those for the record as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator.
Senator Kennedy.
Mr. Marcus, I'm going to move kind of fast here today, so I apologize in advance if I interrupt you. We only have 5 minutes. I want to first agree with a lot of the comments that Senator Toomey made. We need to encourage innovation, but I want to explore today the underpinnings of Libra. Can we agree that a banker should be trustworthy?
Yes, Senator.
Can we agree that a banker should be honest?
Yes, Senator.
Can we agree that a banker should respect a customer's privacy?
Senator, yes, of course, but we are not going to engage in banking services.
Can we agree that that Facebook knew in the spring of 2016 that Russia was attempting through Facebook to disrupt the U.S. presidential election?
Senator, with regards to those events, we definitely moved too slow, and we've learned...
Isn't it true that your general counsel and your chief security officer knew in the spring of 2016? Isn't it true that Mr. Zuckerberg and your CFO, Ms. Sandberg, I believe, knew in December of 2016? Isn't it also true that you didn't tell your board of directors, they didn't tell the board of directors until 2017? Until September 2017? Isn't that accurate?
Senator, we definitely moved too slow to recognize the activities that were happening on the platform.
Well,
but since...
excuse me if interrupting, but I only got 5 minutes. In September 2017, when senior management told your board of directors, Facebook also issued a statement. It said, yeah, the Russians have tried to disrupt the election through Facebook, but they only spent $100,000 and they only ran 3,000 ads. That was a lie, wasn't it?
I'm sorry, Senator.
That was a lie, wasn't it?
I don't believe it was, but...
Well, later Facebook admitted that actually the Russian ads had reached 126 million people, didn't they?
Senator, I believe that the people who answered that question at the time answered to the best of their knowledge at the time.
Right. When Mr. Zuckerberg was conducting his listening tour across the whole country, first half, I think, of 2017, when he was feeding cows in Wisconsin and having dinner with refugees in Minneapolis, he knew about the Russian involvement, didn't he?
I don't know, Senator.
Okay. He didn't say anything, did he?
I don't remember the timeline, Senator.
Okay. In the spring of 2017, spring and summer, our Intelligence Committee in the U.S. Senate started investigating the Russian attempts to disrupt the election through Facebook. Facebook issued a statement saying there were no such attempts. That was a lie, wasn't it?
Senator, I don't remember the timeline, and I believe that people have always answered truthfully with the information they had at the time.
Okay, in June of 2018, let me fast forward a little bit, we found out that Facebook was sharing user data with device makers, a whole bunch of them, 40 of them, Amazon, Microsoft, Samsung. Facebook didn't disclose that to the users, did it?
Senator, my understanding, and again, it was not my responsibility or my team, is that this was designed to enable those phone manufacturers to build integration within the Facebook product to serve those consumers using these devices.
Okay. Your algorithms are such that if I watch a video on a topic, I'm immediately shown videos on more extreme versions of that topic. We call that stickiness. Is that correct?
This is not the way that the Facebook platform operates today, Senator.
But it did for a long time, right?
Senator, Mark really led through the chain.
Well, can we agree on this, that Facebook has now become the major news source for many, many people, probably the major news source? Is that true?
I don't believe it is, Senator. I believe that more and more people are interacting with other people on the platform.
60% of your users say they get their news off Facebook as their primary source. Isn't it true, I really want your opinion, that Facebook has chosen to advance a set of values in which truthful reporting has been displaced by flagrant displays of bullshit?
I don't know how to answer that question, Senator.
Okay. Well, here's my last question, and I agree again with Senator Toomey. I have great respect for Facebook, but Facebook now wants to control the money supply. What could possibly go wrong?
Senator, we will not control either Libra, the currency, or the association, and we agree that no company should control such a network or digital currency.
I'd like a second round if we could, Mr. Chairman.
If we have time, I will be glad to do that for senators who so wish. Senator Smith.
Thank you very much. Welcome. So I got a lot of questions about this. You'll understand the level of skepticism that you see here, and I appreciate you being here to answer our questions. I want to try to understand a little bit better this association. So the Libra Association expects to have you think about 100 founding members who together you say will be making decisions about investment strategy and regulatory compliance and social impact goals. Who's in charge?
Senator, the way that the governance of the association works is that you'll have this council of 100 or more members that will make decisions and will elect a board that will be between 5 to 19 members, and that board will then, of course, elect a managing director, and the association will have a staff to perform the governance function that it is supposed to look after.
You know, in the United States Senate, we also have 100 members, but it's clear who's in charge. Mitch McConnell is in charge. And so I'm trying to understand in this sort of...
I thought it was shared.
Chair Crapo is in charge of this committee.
Oh, it's shared.
I'm trying to understand, like, in this sort of, you described sort of almost a consensus bill. Will decisions be made on a consensus basis? I understand that there's some sort of a 2/3 majority, but help me understand how decisions get made.
Of course, Senator. The decisions are basically, the structure of the governance is one where there are certain things that should be really hard to change. And those are important things to the spirit of how the network is supposed to operate, the spirit in which the reserve is supposed to operate. And I believe that when it comes to the reserve, by the way, we will need appropriate regulatory oversight.
Would there be like a constitution or a body of rules that would be agreed to ahead of time that would guide the decision making?
Yes, Senator, and it will be made public.
And how do you parse out kind of minority rights versus majority rights on this board?
As it stands, the way that it's starting, every member, if we have 100 member, will have an equal voice at the council.
But what if there's a disagreement and there's, you know, is the minority then just automatically overwhelmed by the majority in this board?
It will depend on the type of decision. Not all decisions will need supermajority to reach a consensus, Senator.
So it seems to me possible in any board, in any group of humans, people develop coalitions, and it just seems to me that there's a big question about how, you know, every voice is going to be heard in this incredibly powerful association headquartered in Switzerland. Is this board like a corporate board in the sense that, what if there were conflict of interest that developed?
We hope that we'll avoid conflicts of interests, of course, Senator. But again, we have a lot of work to do between now and the launch. And this is why we shared our white paper early on, to get all of the feedback and the input and ensure that we can address all the concerns, get proper regulatory oversight. And part of that is also going to be governance of the association.
Well, I think these are really, really important questions because we're imagining this association headquartered in Switzerland. It would have amazing power over the financial health of this country, over my constituents, and over, you know, so I think these questions of accountability are extremely important. Let me ask, switch topics a little bit. What's the long-term business opportunity for Facebook here?
Senator, two business opportunities. One is really the ability for the 90 million small businesses and the many users we have on the platform to transact with one another. So as a result, more commerce on the Facebook platform and our family of apps. And if there's more commerce, there will be more advertising revenue for Facebook. So that's one indirect effect of enabling
more commercial activity on Facebook equals more money for Facebook, more more money.
Yes, Senator.
Yeah.
And the other part of it is if we earn people's trust with the Calibra wallet and they decide to use it over time, we can offer, in partnership with financial institutions and banks, other services that will be new sources of revenue for the company.
So competing on wallet, getting a bigger market share of wallets. But it seems to me, I know I'm out of time, Mr. Chair, but it seems to me that what Facebook is really good at is figuring out how to monetize people's personal data, not only the data that Facebook gets directly, but the ambient data that Facebook collects through all of the many, many millions of activities that we take every year. That what Facebook is really good at is capitalizing literally on that data. And so I have to say I'm not reassured by your statement that you can't see any reason right now why there wouldn't be data sharing between these platforms. I have some additional questions for the record, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Senator McSally.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Marcus, I don't trust Facebook. And it's because of the repeated violations of your users' privacy, repeated deceit, and I am not alone. As you know, in 2011, there was a consent decree with the Federal Trade Commission related to your privacy practices. So that's where it started there with investigative bodies, but it hasn't ended. Even after that consent decree, Facebook is under investigation again. And FTC has approved a fine for about $5 billion just recently because of your repeated violations of your users' information. For example, without users' permission, sharing personal profile information with outside software developers, selling that off again, data breaches, allegations that you've repeatedly changed users' privacy settings without notice. The SEC, of course, is also investigating events surrounding the sale of personal information from Facebook. The New York State's Office of Attorney General has an investigation into unauthorized collection of 1.5 million Facebook users' email contact databases, on and on and on. There's allegations of bugs that, oh, sorry, we didn't mean to allow them to download photos, and it's one after another after another after another. So I don't trust you guys. So instead of cleaning up your house, now you're launching into another business model with Calibra here, and you've got documents that talk about your privacy commitment for Calibra. So in that privacy commitment, you say that you won't be sharing account information or financial data with Facebook or any third party without customer consent. So how do we know that this isn't going to change, and how do we know you're actually going to do that based on your track record of failing and violating and deceiving in the past?
It's a totally fair question, Senator, and I want to answer it in two parts. The first is that, as you know, we've been working really, really hard on addressing the issues. Some of them you've raised. We have invested incredible resources in election integrity and privacy. Mark has made it his top priority. And we will continue to do that until those issues are fully resolved and addressed to satisfaction. On the Libra side, we have designed this network in such a way that Facebook doesn't and won't control it or the currency, and that there will be plenty of competition. And I want to take a moment to explain why there will be a lot of competition. First, there's interoperability. So regardless of the wallet you choose, you'll be able to pay across wallets, which is currently not possible.
I don't want to get into the technical stuff. I'm talking about the trust issue. So you violated privacy in the past as a company. You continue to have issues. You continue to change the privacy even rules without informing users, yet you're launching a new product and you're claiming that their privacy is going to be protected. So how are users to know that that's also not going to change and they're not going to be violated? That's what I'm getting at. The core issue here is trust.
And Senator, the point is really that people can get all of the benefit from this network without using our wallet. And I know that we will have to earn people's trust for a very long period of time in order to get the benefit of them wanting to use the Calibra wallet instead of any of the other wallets. They'll have the choice of using.
So let me follow up also. I know Senator Toomey asked a question. Your privacy document says that Calibra will be transparent, offering customer choices and controls using clear, simple language and easy-to-find privacy controls that detail what data is collected, used, shared, and for what purposes. You're telling me, and I think you said this already, but can you clarify, the user will not be able to have consent as to their data being collected?
I'm sorry, I don't understand the question, Senator.
Okay, for Calibra, you specifically say in your privacy document that there will be easy to understand controls on what data is being collected. So will the user have consent for their data being collected when they're using Calibra?
Yes, Senator.
So do they have to consent in order to use Calibra?
Yes, Senator.
Okay, so that's really no choice, right? So you're in order to use it, your data has to be collected. There's no option to opt out.
Well, Senator, if you want to use the Calibra wallet, you will have to, for instance, authenticate and upload a government-issued ID. And if consumers don't want us to collect that government-issued ID, for instance, at the very first step, then of course they won't be able to use the service because we will be compliant to KYC regulation.
So what's the business model of Calibra then? You mentioned the interface with Facebook just recently, that the more people are using it, the more people will stay on Facebook, and then you can just continue to collect their personal information and target them with ads and sell off their information. Is that the business model of Calibra, or how are they going to make money?
With respect, Senator, that's not what I said. But what I said is...
But that's actually what happens.
I'll focus on the specific question you asked, Senator, which is that we have 90 million businesses, many of them that grow thanks to the Facebook advertising platform. They're able to reach new consumers, they're able to hire, and we believe that if they now have the ability to sell to more constituents across the Facebook platform, and more people have access to the services and products of those 90 million businesses, then more commerce will happen on the Facebook platform.
Wonderful public good that you guys are committed to. I know I'm way over time here, and that was extremely sarcastic. Thank you.
Senator Sinema.
Thank you, Chairman Crapo, and thank you to our witness for being here today. Mr. Marcus, Arizonans have heard a lot of promises from Facebook over the years about privacy. For example, Facebook promised when it acquired WhatsApp that it would not scrape our message data to deliver targeted ads. But 2 years later, Facebook broke its promise and monetized our personal message data. With real doubts about Facebook's commitment to privacy, Arizonans are rightfully skeptical about the proposed digital currency Libra. The goal of Libra is to reach the unbanked and underbanked, which is a noble goal. But it's important to remember that those who haven't utilized a bank or credit card will be more susceptible to scammers and predatory practices. Your head of product, Kevin Wheel, told TechCrunch on June 18th that there are, quote, no plans for the Libra Association to take a role in actively vetting, end quote, developers of wallets, exchanges, or other related apps. But failing to vet developers would expose Arizonans to scammers, which is unacceptable. Do you stand by Kevin's statement?
Senator, first I want to